I'm about to tell you something that's completely backwards. This convertible drives better with the top up. I know. It's like saying pizza tastes better without cheese or traffic jams are relaxing. But after spending a week with this 2025 MINI Cooper S Convertible, I can tell you that MINI has accidentally created a car that challenges everything we think we know about drop-top driving. And the reason why reveals something about modern engineering that nobody else is talking about. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things. And on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now, this being better with its roof up might sound like automotive engineering blasphemy, but hear me out. MINI has solved that fundamental convertible compromise in a way that other manufacturers haven't even considered. And we're going to explore the kind of structural rigidity that MINI is capable of achieving in 2025. It has a serious effect on the overall driving experience, and it's what makes this car really special. And before we get into what it's like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. As we know, for 2025, the MINI Cooper has been completely redesigned for 2025 with new architecture, a completely new interior, and all new tech. And since this is a convertible, it's worth noting that chassis rigidity is up significantly over the previous version, and new structural engineering gives this MINI a better platform for better driving dynamics with the top up and the top down. And speaking of the top, it opens in 18 seconds. It speeds up to 19 miles an hour. Under the hood is a 2-liter 4-cylinder that is indeed turbocharged, makes 201 horsepower at 5,000 RPM and 221 pounds of torque from 1,500 to 4,500 RPM. The transmission's a 7-speed dual clutch, and this is front-wheel drive with an open differential. Steering's electrically assisted, McPherson struts at the front, multi-link at the rear, adaptive dampers are optional, which this one has. 4-wheel disc brakes, of course. Wheels and tires on this one are 18s, and curb weight of this MINI Cooper S Convertible is a little over 3,200 pounds. And fun fact, the soft top has a Union Jack pattern option because nothing says I make questionable financial decisions quite like paying extra for flag cosplay on your roof. But here's what's fascinating. MINI has managed to make a convertible top that's more sophisticated than most people's home security systems and probably more reliable than your Wi-Fi connection. And it operates with what they call whisper quiet precision, and they're not wrong. It's quieter than most people's reaction when they learn the price. Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this, and if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. Ergonomics are minimalist as well as modern MINI. So we've got conventional controls for the cruise control, the adaptive cruise control, and some secondary controls for the audio system, things like that. And then we've got the toggle switches, and this adds a whole lot of charm and character to this MINI. In a world where everything is touch sensitive and haptic feedback this and gesture control that, MINI said, you know what, sometimes people just want to flip a switch and have something happen. It's refreshingly analog in a digital world, like finding a payphone that actually works or a millennial who can drive a manual transmission. And these toggles have a great feel, and it's a great experience, like you're doing something important, even if that important thing is just taking a trip to Target. Let's talk about space, and that's where things get interesting because this is a MINI after all. The front seats have enough adjustment for people up to about 6'2", which covers roughly 90% of MINI's target demographic. The rear seats, however, are designed for people who have given up on leg circulation or children who haven't hit their growth spurt yet. It's like MINI designed the back for people who fold laundry for a living. Technically possible, but not recommended for any time at all. But honestly, if you're buying a MINI convertible for the back seats, you've missed the point by about $40,000. These cup holders are designed for artisanal coffee cups because regular drinks are for people who shop at Costco. I've said it before about these 2025 MINIs. The interior is wonderfully minimalist, but the materials are extremely high quality. They rival that of what are in BMWs these days, which is fitting because this is basically an entry-level BMW dressed up in a Union Jack costume. It sure looks quick enough from the outside. Let's try it here from the driver's seat. Wow, that torque ramps up so quick. That is impressive. There's really no discernible lag here. I suppose if I really dissected, there might be a little bit, but this develops peak torque so low that you really don't notice if there is any lag whatsoever. This will do 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds flat, and it tops out at about 150 miles an hour. That's the thing with this motor. It develops peak torque way low in the rev range and then is happy to carry on to redline where it makes maximum power. It is a joy to drive, but it's really that torque that's the highlight because it's always readily available. Even if we're cruising along like we are now, just lean into the throttle. Didn't even get a downshift here. That's impressive. And if you want more power, more acceleration, well, just mat the throttle. The dual clutch downshifts and you get maximum acceleration. And that's the benefit of having a dual clutch. Shifts are so quick, they're lightning quick. The drivetrain here is so well resolved. The 7-speed dual clutch and the turbo 4-cylinder are definitely optimized to work together. The one thing that is missing here are some shift paddles on the back of the steering wheel. And I think because this is so much fun to drive, I'd really love some shift paddles on the Cooper S. Yes, they're available on the JCW, but I think it's a bit of an oversight to exclude them from the Cooper S. Yes, we know it's got an open diff, but the way they've got it sorted in terms of both suspension geometry, ironing out the kinks in terms of torque steer, as well as the brake-based systems that get involved, it's seamless in terms of the way it puts down power. Whether we're accelerating in a straight line on rough roads or picking up the throttle, accelerating out of a corner, you're able to track perfect lines, and torque steer really isn't a thing here. I haven't experienced it in this drive, and even in the wet, when you're asking for acceleration, it doesn't display any bad habits. The 201 horsepower doesn't sound like a lot, especially in an era when we have 700 horsepower pickups. But here's the thing about power to weight ratios that most people miss. This Mini has 137 horsepower per ton, which is more than a base 911 from the 1980s. Physics hasn't changed, even if our expectations have. It's quick enough to embarrass larger cars in the real world, where traffic lights and on-ramps matter more than dyno sheets and bragging rights. And that's the thing, sometimes context matters much more than the numbers in a brochure. Now, when it comes to handling, I suppose we should hit some corners, shall we? Let's. Turn in response, absolutely perfect. Suspension soaking up the bumps. Bumps are rough here. Great job, very impressive. And the character of this Cooper S isn't lost with it being a convertible. The thing about Mini's perception about making go-kart-like cars is absolutely spot on, and that's because it's so different than most other vehicles that you can buy today. The fact of the matter is, it gives you that go-kart vibe simply because it changes direction so quickly. Whether we're talking about turning the steering wheel into a corner or hitting the brakes, this thing changes directions so quickly, unlike just about everything else on the road. As someone who's raced front-wheel drive cars a heck of a lot, it's always fun getting back into a front-wheel drive car because the dynamics are a little bit different than most others. And the thing is, when you're exiting a corner, you have to be a little bit more judicious with your throttle application, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a completely different experience than most other vehicles, which are either all-wheel drive these days or rear-wheel drive, and this just adds a element of character that's absent from so many cars, and certainly a lot of front drivers. The reason is it's a very cohesive, dynamic package, and it just works so well together. The suspension geometry has tuned out much of the torque steer that you would otherwise get, and you're able to put down power exiting a corner very, very easily. And the thing is, the way the entire dynamic package works, it makes it easy to hustle through corners, and even when you're picking up the throttle, exiting a corner. It is front wheel drive, of course, so there's a lot of weight on the nose, but the way they've tuned this suspension, it's very well balanced, and it's fairly neutral in the corners when you're playing with this around its limits. The steering's definitely a highlight, and turn and response is excellent. Tracks through corner, no problem at all. Communicates your inputs to those front tires perfectly, and it works extremely well here. The only thing I'd like is a little bit more feel out of the steering. But on the other hand, chassis feel is excellent, and like most Minis, I can feel exactly what's going on at each contact patch. The suspension is definitely tuned for handling more so than comfort, but the dampers do a great job of soaking up the bumps. The ride is not harsh in any way, but I really do appreciate the way these dampers work, and they do a great job with body and wheel control. There is no secondary motion to be worried about here. The suspension, the dampers keep this MINI Cooper S Convertible buttoned down and in contact with the road surface. They just do a great job controlling wheel movement, so you've always got confidence that you're connected to the road. And one of the highlights for me is, of course, the brakes. And for fun, let's just get into them. Great pedal feel, great stopping power as well, but really like the quality of feel and control out of this brake pedal. Very impressive. And regular viewers of the show know that I'm a brake pedal feel fetishist, and this is an excellent brake pedal. There's a little bit of body roll on initial turn in, and that's good for communication, good feedback loop for drivers like you and me. But otherwise, there's not an excessive amount once you're into the corner. The best part about the whole dynamic package is that they've started with a very rigid platform. This convertible has a much more rigid platform than before, and it's definitely noticeable. It's very hard to tell that it's a convertible, especially when the top's up, because it's nice and quiet in here. But in this case, we have tested a fair bit with the top up. We're just not filming it that way because it's a convertible and we have to have the top down, of course. Now, about that term, go-kart handling, that Mini loves to throw around. Usually that's marketing hyperbole, like calling airline food cuisine or pretending customer service chatbots are helpful. But this little convertible actually backs up the claim. The center of gravity is so low you could probably limbo it under a coffee table, and the wheelbase is short enough that directional changes happen with the immediacy of a guilty conscience. It carves through corners as if it's auditioning for a ballet, just with more horsepower and better sound effects. The steering in this thing is a masterclass in electric assist done right. Most electric steering feels like playing a video game with a broken controller, but the Mini has somehow managed to maintain that direct connected feel that made the original Mini so famous. It responds to directional change unlike anything else, and there's great feedback that comes through the chassis, not so much through the steering wheel. And chassis feel is so good, it's as if you're having a conversation with the pavement, and the pavement actually has something interesting to say. Overall dynamics and handling balance is on par with most hot hatches, which makes sense because this is basically a hot hatch that gave up its roof for attention. And yeah, in my time with this Mini, turbo lag has been basically non-existent, much like my ability to explain turbocharger technology, which begins and ends with the spinny thing that makes more power. Comparing this to a Civic Si, for example, they both make similar power, but this costs twice as much, which is kind of like comparing a fine Swiss mechanical watch to an Apple Watch. But on the other hand, you can't get a Civic Si convertible. I think the real story with this engine is torque delivery. Peak torque comes in at about 1,500 RPM, goes to over 4,000 RPM, which means this thing pulls like a diesel, but revs like a sports car. In the real world, that translates to effortless highway passing and the kind of low-end grunt that makes urban driving actually enjoyable. You can just leave it in gear and surf the torque curve like you're riding the perfect wave, which is the most zen-like experience you'll ever have driving a front-wheel drive British convertible. How do you spec yours? Well, have a couple of thoughts. What you are looking at is a 2025 MINI Cooper S Convertible in copper gray metallic. In Canada, that is called sparkling copper gray metallic, and that is the beige Vexen interior. Base price in the US is $37,200. Add $5,100 for the iconic trim and $500 for the dampers. And as tested, it's $42,800. In Canada, base price is $46,990 plus $4,000 for the Premier Plus package, plus $2,000 for the favored style, plus the paint and the dampers, for a total as tested of $54,190. Now let's talk about value, because it's here where things get philosophically interesting. At its base price, this Mini costs more than a fully loaded Honda Accord, which gives you more space, more features, and maybe more reliability. But comparing this to an Accord is like comparing a craft cocktail to a run-of-the-mill beer. They're both drinks, but they're solving completely different problems. Now let's be real, this Mini isn't about rational transportation, it's about emotional transportation. And emotions, as we know from relationships and retail therapy, are expensive. The other thing is that the build quality justifies the price better than I can justify most of my automotive purchase recommendations to people with functioning frontal lobes. Now, in terms of speccing yours, the thing is, Mini is about fun, and you're going to have a lot of fun speccing your MINI Cooper S Convertible in different colors and different trims, but the real option that you have to get are the dampers. These dampers do a fantastic job here in this MINI Cooper S, but as far as I'm concerned, pick your colors, be happy with your MINI Cooper S Convertible. My verdict, well, let's start with fuel consumption, because some of you are curious, and to be fair, I haven't been tracking it that accurately. I think I'm getting about 25 miles per gallon average, maybe 10 liters per 100 kilometers from my Canadian friends, and I'd love to hear from MINI Cooper S Convertible owners to understand what your real world consumption is, so please drop that in the comments below when you get a chance. As for this Mini, here's the thing that everyone missed. I think they understand that a convertible shouldn't just be a hardtop with its roof cut off. When you remove a roof, you don't just lose weather protection, you lose a critical structural element. Most manufacturers try to compensate with heavier door frames and thicker sills, making the car feel like it's wearing a corset. But Mini took a different approach. They engineered the chassis to be so rigid in the first place that the roof becomes almost redundant structurally. The result, whether the top is up or down, you get that go-kart feeling Mini is famous for. The difference is, with the top up, you also get the acoustic isolation to hear the car working, as well as the sound system. With the top down, all of that gets lost in a little bit of wind noise and road noise. So yes, it's a brilliant convertible, but it's an even better coupe that just happens to have a disappearing roof. And sometimes the best convertibles don't have to be convertibles to be great cars. The thing about this 2025 MINI Cooper S is that it's completely irrational, it's highly impractical, but it's highly irresistible. It's like falling in love with someone who's wrong for you on paper, but perfect for you in reality. This car doesn't make sense until you drive it, and then suddenly you're spending all this money on something the size of a roller skate. And in some ways, it's emotional manipulation through mechanical precision, and Mini has perfected that better than anyone else in the business. And I've talked myself into worse purchases with less justification, and if you're looking for responsible automotive advice, you're watching the wrong channel. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this 2025 MINI Cooper S Convertible. Hope you liked it, and if you did, you're not new, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, like this, and as always, sharing is caring, so please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time. And remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even MINI Cooper S convertibles. And since you've hung around this long, we'll have a look at our recent episode of the 2025 MINI Cooper JCW. I think you might enjoy that episode. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time.